So from the moment the coronavirus pandemic hit Nigeria, President Buhari swung into action by raising a committee to look at its effect on our economy. That was one. Then a presidential task force on COVID-19 headed by the SGF was inaugurated, and another special committee was set up by the NEC to coordinate the federal and state government's response to COVID-19 that is headed by the vice president. So it's about a month now since the index case was discovered, and today there are 49 active cases with a possibility of other cases still undetected. The question is, are we winning the battle against COVID-19? What is the thinking of the presidency at this time? And how are the needs of Nigerians being factored in? Big questions there. So let's speak with Mr. Femi Adesina, who's a media advisor to the president. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Good evening, Mr. Adesina, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Good evening.
You know, it's easy to get carried away with all the, reports about COVID-19 without checking on one another. So let me begin from there on a lighter note. How are you holding up? How are you doing at this time?
Very well, to the glory of God.
Well, I also imagine that this has affected the operations at the villa. Yesterday, you mentioned the partial lockdown in your words. But then we understand that the nation is not on lockdown. More than any time, we need to actually work right now. So I'm just curious, and a lot of Nigerians are curious, how is the presidency conducting day-to-day operations? I imagine you have to hold, meetings with the task force on COVID-19, with other members of the executive arm. How is the presidency going about this at this time?
Well, things are fairly on a low key in the presidency because the entire country also is on a low key. You can't say we are running at full blast now. Instead of holding meetings where you sit around the table, you can do virtual meetings. You can consult and contact one another in different ways. You don't have to hold the meeting that we used to in the normal way when we all sit around the table. But things are low-key.
Reports emerged earlier on today that the president's, the villa was being disinfected or fumigated, and that's out there in the media. I'd just like to get a confirmation from you. Is that indeed true?
It's a normal thing. It's done from time to time. It's the villa is under a retainership. People that keep it clean, that fumigate from time to time. So there's nothing extraordinary about it.
All right. So how is the president's chief of staff doing at this time? That's also one thing I would like to get clarification on.
No, obviously you listened to the Minister of Health earlier in the day when he briefed. He didn't confirm. He just said an aide to the president. So I wouldn't be mentioning names.
Well, I'm not asking you. I'm just asking about the president's chief of staff. How is it doing? I asked you about your health. You said you were fine. So how is the chief of staff also doing, if you know?
Because I have not seen him for a couple of days, so I wouldn't be able to tell you that this is how he is. If you ask me about the president was still in the office yesterday, I will tell you, yes, Mr. President is doing fine.
Mr. Adesina, I'm sure you're aware of the news out there about the Chief of Staff's state of health. Of course, we wish everybody the best at this time, but it's important, to have some form of clarification on this matter. And people are wondering, is the presidency keeping mum on this deliberately?
No, you also need to remember that it's a question of ethics. If the health minister, who is a reputed medical doctor, came out to brief and he didn't mention names, it tells you that it's in the realm of ethics. Anybody passing through a health condition is the one that can authorize that it be revealed. Nobody else, not even a doctor treating that person, dare reveal it, otherwise he will be breaching the ethics. So, Prince Charles, for instance, tested positive. He said, reveal it, disclose it. And a statement was issued to that effect. He authorized it. Our vice president tested negative, and he said, disclose it. And his media aide disclosed it. So that is the way it is done, ethically.
Right. So as a matter of closure, because, Mr. Adesina, you'll agree with me that this is still on. A lot of people are speculating about that. In fact, different theories. And I recall you said that Nigerians like conspiracy theories. As a matter of closure on this, what would you be telling Nigerians?
I'll be telling Nigerians that we are part of the global community. The world has an emergency, has a crisis. The world is battling it, with each country trying as much as it could within its capacity. Nigeria is part of that global community. The country is doing its best. Let's stay focused. Let's continue to battle this virus, which is a common enemy of humanity. And let's leave little things aside and face the major thing.
Right. Now, speaking of one of the major things, we've looked around. You said this is a global war. Definitely. We see, how countries are responding to this. And, of course, how Nigeria is responding, which has been commended in some quarters. But one thing a lot of people are still worried about is the fact that they don't see daily briefings from president, for example. I mean, you look around other nations and you see how the leaders, brief the citizens on a daily basis. And it begs the question, why does it appear as though the president does not want to brief the nation on a daily basis about this, or at least regularly?
It's a matter of style. If we go back to school, you remember in stylistics class, we were told that style is idiosyncratic, which means it differs from person to person. The style that A adopts may not be the one that B adopts, and there is no style that you can call the style for everybody. So everybody is at liberty to adopt a style that suits him.
Right.
The style our president has adopted is to set up a presidential task force headed by the secretary to the government of the federation, which briefs regularly. You have the health minister, who briefs. You have the Minister of State Health, who also briefs. You have the NCDC, National Center for Disease Control. They brief.
So Mr. Adesina,
you have that chain.
A moment. That's understandable.
There is no lack of information.
That's understandable. But, Nigerians will cast their minds back to the period of the 2019 election campaign, where the president actually spoke to Nigerians at every point during that campaign. And they're wondering, what happened to the love? Has the love been lost? Sort of.
No, there are two incommensurates. Campaign is campaign. This you cannot parallel with a campaign. This is about a day-to-day affair of the country. No, you can't compare the two. If it becomes imperative for the president himself to speak, he will speak. But the president's style is that when he gives you an assignment, he leaves you to do it. There are people that he has set up in committees, in task forces, in groups, and they are doing the work, and they keep Nigerians abreast with developments. So he lets them do it.
All right, Mr. Femi Adesina, I would like to thank you so much. We understand that you probably have some other work to do, but thank you for the update on at least the president's response to COVID-19 as it stands right now. Well, we'll go on a break, and when we return, we'll shift our attention to the National Assembly. There's been some moves to ease the burden on Nigerians, especially in this very seemingly difficult period. It's called the Emergency Economic Stimulus Bill. What does it mean for you and I? Find out in a moment. Join us again.